Welcome back to the Boundary Corner podcast. I'm Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegler. Buddy, how you doing tonight? Wednesday. Let's do it.
It's hump day, coming off the bye week, feeling refreshed. Not as much stress on the body over the last weekend. Not as much stress as having to go through a 3.5 hour stomach ache, as Justin Fuente has said consistently this year about our team. I got to go through a hour and a half stomach ache on Sunday watching the 49ers play the Seahawks when we hold them, drive, get 3 freaking points.
Yeah, y'all definitely figured out a new way to do it there. We finally got one in the books. The Colts put one on the good side of the board there. Hopefully we get a little bit more healthy as we go into the middle part of the season here, because, I mean, we've been banged up all over the place.
Yes,
but T.Y.'s probably back in. Yeah, Quinn Nelson missed his first start. I mean, you got that. You got T.Y.'s been on IR. Other guys on offense and defense have been banged up. Jonathan Taylor got a little nick this week. He might not be full go coming into this week. So
true.
It's been an interesting year, although they look about the same as my fantasy team. So
well, the Niners didn't start Trey Lance in the second half, and it's like people are like, oh, he doesn't look good. He looks shaky. It's like he had no script. He had no first team preps. He had nothing. He scored 14 points against Seattle. I feel good about that. Your fantasy team is doing great. You know, I got lucky the first 2 weeks of fantasy season. I couldn't barely break 100, but I take W's. And then the last 2 weeks, I'm starting to put the points together. People are getting healthy. I'm finding the right mix of the lineup. Yeah, your boy's undefeated.
There you go. I'm sitting in the bottom third right now. I'm kind of hanging in there by a thread right now. I just got to get my running backs healthy.
You know the weird piece? We're in the same league. Everybody, you and several other people who were in the semis last year are just at the bottom.
It's got nothing to do with draft position.
No, because
it's just been bad luck.
Bad luck. Well, you told me the other day, Brian texted me, you were like, dude, I now know exactly what you went through in 2020 concerning injuries. And I'm like,
I even got the Joe Mixon thing going on. I've got some parallels.
Well, guys,
I just get one running back healthy, and then Joe Mixon might miss this week. So one in, one out.
That is the life of fantasy football. Well, obviously, folks, this week we are going to be talking about the Notre Dame game here in a few minutes. But before we get into that, got some general things we want to hit on, a couple Hokies notes. But, Brian, let's talk about this for Hokies basketball. What a pickup. I mean, an absolute pickup. Getting Rodney Rice, the combo guard out of DeMatha. Not a shock there. Top 50 player, top 10 combo guard, one of the best players in the state of Maryland. I mean,
yep.
We don't follow basketball as close. It's tough. Yeah. If you are a avid follower of basketball, feel free to DM us. You might could have a show with the Boundary Corner podcast basketball version. But the team already looks good. Mike Young, great pickup. The coach out of DeMatha clearly get this kid now. I mean, you mentioned to me you were just reading an article. What is it? It's 2 more guys we could pick up, and it could be best class ever, and that would probably be a top 15 class.
It definitely be one of the better classes that they've had. Clowney's the big other target that we're trying to pull in there. But I mean, this is Mike Jones' hire already paying dividends, and you love to see it out the gate. Getting a major pickup like Rodney Rice, guy that's probably going to give you a lot of good quality minutes out the gate, but isn't necessarily quite at that one and done level. So you're probably going to get him for 3 years in the program, which is going to be big as well. So I think that's good for the long term and the short term. So that's going to be a big pickup for us. Looking forward to seeing him in the maroon and orange next year.
Absolutely. And as much as you can say with Mike Jones being at the Matha, um, you look at Mike Jones' resume and how many like 16 and under teams and stuff like that he's coached. I think that's just him coming in and making the immediate impact. Because this kid, you could probably list the schools he went to. He probably could have his choice of probably any 15 or 20 schools of where he was. So again, Mike Young, Mike Jones tearing it up. Let me tell you who's not tearing it up, Brian. This was like the story of the weekend and just hilarious. Urban Meyer. Um,
I mean, tearing it up in the wrong way, I guess, more than.
oh, I'm gonna say this right now. If he had any thoughts about going back to collegiate football, that's never gonna happen again. And honestly, once he gets fired from Jackson, that's probably it. Because I don't think what he did in that bar, and it's not so much he was in a bar drinking. It's like the video that came out yesterday and what he did. That's it. Are you really going to hire a guy and put him around co-eds? Obviously, there's going to be female trainers, female student.
I mean, Louisville might be
willing
to give him a run.
True. They did rehire Petrino, but I mean, what a shit show that he is. I mean, and it's been at every stop.
It's it's been a lot of questionable things, whether it's some of the things that were swept under the rug at Florida, whether it's in how he left that situation, some of the things that got pushed to the side and swept under the rug in Ohio State, and how he left again. Like, this guy doesn't do himself any favors when it comes to the public relations of the universities and programs that he works with.
No.
Usually it takes about a year or two for it to start to come to a head. Here we got it 4 weeks into the season. So
hold on, less than that though, because the hiring the old Iowa strength coordinator was immediately like, this guy got fired.
Oh yeah. I mean that was hurting their PR right out the gate.
And then I'm going to put Tim Tebow as one of my 90, where it's like, okay, you're really not taking this seriously. Tim Tebow's been out of football for 6 years. Why are you putting him on your team? So it's a complete joke. I think because of this incident, and whether it be USC, Penn State, whoever, if you seriously go approach and say, we're going to hire him, like, okay, immediately it's like you're a joke of a program because of that incident in general, along with all the other excess baggage. So I think I think it's done. I think his TV career is over too, because again, doing this type of stuff and getting busted, he's done. And maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah. And, at least if nothing else, we got the solid urban cowboy meme out of this thing, because
yes,
that one sent me, man. That one sent me. As soon as I was like, oh.
Absolutely great.
Chef's
Brian.
kiss. Chef's kiss.
All right. So Brian, last Saturday night, you're sitting there, probably like me, watching some of the late games, probably Twittering, and you're thinking about game day. Where they go next? Because this was the week we thought, if we can somehow get 4-0 and Notre Dame gets to 5-0, chance of game day comes here. We lose West Virginia. They lose Cincinnati last week. And you're sitting there, you're looking, it's like, well, they're going to Iowa. It's going to be 2 top 4 teams.
Yeah.
And instead, we're going to the Red River Shootout. Woohoo! And I sat there, Brian.
For the 90th time.
And now, listen, it's a cool venue. It's a cool thing. And the times they've been before, you think of some of the times in the mid-2000s and even the later part of the 2000s, they were usually in the top 5. It made sense.
Or at least one of them was, right? At least one of them was.
Well, think mid-2000s.
Yeah, mid-2000s, it was consistently a top 5, top 8 matchup.
Exactly.
And I mean, this is probably the year where both teams collectively are ranked the lowest, right?
Both ranked the lowest, both not looking good. Texas is 21. Oklahoma's hanging on to a top 5 team, but if they're a top 5 team, then we're a top 15 team. That's just the way I feel about that. Yes, they've won every game, but it's been ugly. But Brian, I did more digging, and do you realize how much the new ESPN SEC contract is per team?
I would say it's very healthy.
It's
I
almost
don't know the
70,
figures, but I think it's very healthy.
it's almost $70 million.
Okay.
You know what it was just a few years ago?
What you got?
55 million. So you're telling me that they're getting, what is that? About a 26% increase? You smell it?
Yeah.
I, I I'm going to go ahead and just outright put this out here. I think ESPN was significantly behind the push to get Texas and Oklahoma into the SEC. Because you look at that contract and you say, how are you going from mid 50s to damn near $70 million? It's one thing they had in mind. We're going to get two great big old fan bases, and they're going to come over here. We're going to get we can get control of the Longhorn Network. We don't have to compete with Fox with them anymore. It makes sense. So yeah. if you're the Big 12, do you not lawyer up and would you?
You got to do something. You got to do something.
Because it's fishy.
And I'm with you. I'm with you. It's definitely, there were hints that they were already scheming against the Big 12, but this is showing outright market favoritism towards the SEC as well. Yes. So we got kind of two things working in tandem to really kind of fuck the Big 12 here, right?
Oh, absolutely. And then you're not going to the Big 10, and again, the Big 10. This game is on Fox at 4:00. It's not an ESPN game. And if anybody who's our age, if you remember what game day used to be, it didn't matter what network the game was on. It didn't. They went to what was going to be one of the biggest games. And now sometimes if they got to midseason, they sort of fluctuate. They'd be like, okay, we're going to go to an ACC game this week. And then next week we're going to go to a Big 12 game. And then next week we're going to go a little off kilter and do an FCS game.
Yeah.
And people can say, well,
as you get into late October and early November, some of those matchups, you usually have one in every conference that you could really make a good case for. Once you get towards Halloween and then pretty much the entire month of November. So it does get harder then, but we're talking about the first week in October here. We're talking about a clear-cut case.
The better game is not
the better game. It's not even negotiable in terms of where they're ranked, their resume, all the things that you want to talk about. There's, and even the name. I mean, Penn State is still a big name in terms of how the fan base travels, how they show up, all that stuff. So there's still some marquee names there. Iowa has become a really good kind of secondary.
Yep.
Smaller game day atmosphere in the last half decade or so, or a little bit even before that. So
yeah,
that would have been a good choice. But we get to see Texas and Oklahoma again. We'll get to talk about all the fun things that comes along with that, but it just seemed like a missed opportunity.
A massive missed opportunity. But it is what it is.
Well, ESPN has really kind of started to cater more towards certain sectors anyway, and it's really sad where ESPN has gone with anything that isn't their live sports presentations. And even then, I mean, you can tell who's getting the second tier equipment and all that shit now. It's really not.
Well, you could. Well,
not as good as what we're talking about. What's that?
Big last year was the ACC networks videos compared to this year. Because last year, some of that stuff was grainy. It was very, very yuck. Now, this year, it looks like they are getting the better video. So maybe it was just COVID. But it's still just very fishy. All right, folks, I'm going to announce something. If for the next month you see me and Brian's head, Brian, look at your TV, ready, set, go. We do this, which we will be doing a lot of playoff baseballs here, Brian. Currently,
Yes,
St.
it is.
Louis, LA 1-1. Brian's beloved Bravos are in. They'll be starting Friday night or Friday
Yeah, against the
afternoon
Brew Crew.
against the Brew Crew. That's going to be a heck of a matchup. Myself, my Cubbies are not there. We sold the farm. Thanks. But
you sold it early and
but
got some return, but
got some. Red Sox are there. Atmosphere in Fenway last night was electric. And then that
also
runs.
Stop bitching about the Green Monster, Yankee fans.
It's been there for 100 years. It's been well. You know what I kind of laugh is people were like, "Well, that ball would have been out in any other stadium. It would have been close. It wasn't a guaranteer because he was in a power alley. He wasn't pulled down the line. That ball went power alley, and it was coming down. That's why it didn't go out. So
it would have been out in maybe a third of the parks. It would have been close in another third, and then there's probably about a third that it would have been in play.
Track.
So yeah.
So quick complaining about that. We both have the same Rudy interest tonight. I don't care if LA has 100+ wins and they're paying everybody $200 million. We hate the Cardinals.
If you're a Cardinals fan, out of there.
If you're a Cardinals fan, we're sorry. It's just Cubs fan and what happened a few years ago with the Braves and the infield fly rule.
Yeah, and that was before. I mean, historically, the Cardinals have been a team that has eliminated the Braves in the playoffs. So the incident with the infield fly was just salt and open wound to already a history that I really didn't like with that team. So Cardinals fans, nothing personal. Just tired of losing to the Cardinals in the playoffs. I don't want to see them.
Exactly. All right, Brian. I threw this to you a little earlier today. I think I'm decided. I think that October is the number one, the GOAT sports month. Are you there or is something competing with you?
I'm absolutely there. I've always been there. It's just so much happening. You got, NBA and hockey gearing up. You got baseball coming to a close, college basketball gearing up. You're in the meat of the schedule for college football. You got NFL. You got kind of the downswing of the golf season. I mean, you got a little bit of everything.
And it's literally going to, starting last night and going forward, I don't think there will not be a live sporting event of some type on from now until November. Like legitimately, I think if you look at the schedule between collegiate football, pro football, baseball, and then obviously get your preseason NBA games and preseason hockey games, and they'll be starting near the end of the month. It's like one of those. If you're out there and you're married, if you haven't watched many sports over the last couple months, go for it. Just we're watching baseball tonight. What about tomorrow night? Football. Then what? Baseball. Then what?
Everything.
Football. Then football. then Virginia Tech's playing a preseason game and it's on the ACC. But just awesome month. The weather's cooling down. You go outside. Went to a neighbor's house last Saturday night. Had a little whiskey neat. Had the fire pit going. We were watching the Clemson game for a little while. So it's just that time of year, man.
It's perfect. It's lovely. It's cooling down. You get to pair it with some other good, fun family activities. So you kind of are off the hook for sitting in front of a TV the rest of the day.
Exactly.
Let's get this in the morning, ladies and gentlemen, so I can go and sit in front of the television from noon to 7, 8 o'clock, depending on how many games you want to watch. And go into the night.
Exactly. And depending on the good games, that good game starts at 9. Go ahead and book me for a good 12 to 13 hours on my butt. And I'm sure with you, Brian, too, a lot easier to smoke in the fall. You're not out there sweating.
Yeah, it's going to be better once we move in January, but right now, it's nice because where I usually am smoking in the backyard gets like direct sunlight in the afternoon, so it gets hot even under the shade there. So it'll be nice in the new house with better shade. But yeah, once it cools down in October, it gets nicer. We're getting into chilly season here.
Yes,
So
we are.
I'll
Officially, I think last weekend you could no, not last weekend. 2 weekends ago you would be okay. Last weekend was too warm. This weekend, what are we looking? What's weather looking like? We're going to give you an official a chilly score here. It is going to be 72 with some chances of rain on Saturday.
okay.
I give that an A minus. A few degrees cooler would be an A, but A
Yeah.
minus, really cooking
Usually
weather.
under 7 is perfect, but under 70 is perfect. You can get away with under 75 if it's raining.
Yeah, and that's what it's called for here in the RVA, and it's looking like that up in Blacksburg too, Brian. So let's turn over a couple Hokies notes from the Fuente press conference. There was no update on Silas Danzy, and basically he said they're going to find out as they go through the week. What do you take from that?
Sounds like it's day to day, and sounds like they are preparing this week as if they don't have him and will adjust accordingly if he is available.
You don't think it's gamesmanship? Where
It
it's
very
full
well
go?
could be. It very well could be, but um, it's hard to tell with Fuente though, right? Because everything is played so close to the chest, you can't tell when he is being a little hesitant with the truth there. Um,
Exactly.
so hard to tell.
Well, let's hope he's there because he is one of our best five offensive linemen. I think
Yep.
that's our collective opinion. Wherever, even if he's playing tackle or guard, he helps the team significantly. All right, Brian, let's talk about the next thing. They were talking about the young players, and he talked about primarily the two Jalen's out of Virginia, Jalen Stroman and Jalen Jones out here in the 804. Talk about they had been close to playing, but they've been held back for various reasons. We know about Jones' injury. We hadn't heard about Stroman. We saw Stroman the first game, had not seen him since. Um, wide receiver wise, it's like I'm not worried because the way it looks, we're not rotating guys. Although Justin Fuente has said we need 6 to 8 guys rotating, we've never rotated any more than like 4.
And when we do see it, the second team doesn't really get a whole lot of run when they're in there. They're mostly there to block and make way for you know throws to the running backs and tight ends.
or
Um,
jet sweep. They'll get the
or
jet
jet
sweep. They'll
sweep.
get the jet motion. Um,
Yeah,
with Stroman though, it sort of Stroman. You feel like because of what happened with Taylor, you feel like Stroman was pushing too deep, and then you saw him on quite a number of special teams played against North Carolina, and then he's been out. The kid has a head for football. I think if nothing else, even as good as the special teams has been, getting him back and just getting him some reps in some way is going to just quickly develop him, and
yeah,
obviously help the safety position depth wise long term.
yeah. And I think in terms of front end, I think we're okay there. We don't need him to be there, but having him there would definitely give us a little bit more cushion, and obviously probably push forward his development as well, which I think is important for the long term.
Absolutely. All right, Brian. The next comments. Oh, buddy. So Justin Fuente decided to say they must tailor make this offense to have success. And then he mentions about getting the running game going, and he has to find ways to get playmakers involved. I'm going to go on this one first.
Yep.
You had Middle Tennessee State, and you had Richmond to do that. And against Middle Tennessee State, as Brian stated, you went so vanilla. And then against Richmond, more vanilla. So to me, no, you don't. You don't. Because if you wanted to try to get people involved and try to tailor make an offense, your two lesser opponents who would have less chance to win a game, even if you made some mistakes, you chose not to.
Yeah, it's a really weird statement, and this has been something historically that we've seen with this team, right?
Yeah.
We kind of saw new wrinkles and changes being made, after Duke, before Miami in 2019. We've seen this staff typically make these wholesale changes of how we're approaching the offense going into games that are
Big.
not those tune-ups. It's
No.
something that matters either in terms of the coastal, or something that matters in terms of the program perception, and
Mm-hmm.
not just taking games like, as you said, Richmond and Middle Tennessee State to really kind of smooth out the edges. We haven't taken advantage of that, and then we've had to hope that we're doing it on the fly against better competition, which is strange because playing off of that, we've played down to lesser competition and played up to the competition in games that we thought we were at least a 50% chance of losing, if not more. So it's really interesting how they approach this because of that history as well.
It's very true, man. And again, you hate trying to make any wholesale changes going into this game, especially, and then going into the back half of the season when you had those games. And again, when I hear Taylor making an offense, I will not believe it until I see it. I
Yeah,
will not believe until I see it, because you're now selling me the empty bill of goods. Oh, we're going to Taylor make it. Oh, best passing game ever. Dude, I don't believe you anymore. Like,
yeah.
until you show me on the field, um, I
And
really,
whether some of those comments are trying to gas up players that you think are listening to what you're saying during these pressers versus actually talking to the media. Like at some point, you're losing the fans' goodwill as you're gassing up these players that you think you're helping by
because
doing so.
we're not seeing anything.
Yeah,
We're not seeing. There's not either a visible change of something different happening on the offense, a something verbalized to us saying, "Well, Vance Weiss is going to call the plays." So it's nothing visual. It's nothing verbal. It's just, oh, we're going to just go away.
define that.
Yeah, define it. What are you tailor making? What are you doing? Are you actually going to throw the ball? Are you actually going to do things different? Because I can't take your word. I can't take your word anymore.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick it at that. All right. Something that somebody brought up. I wish I could remember the porter who asked a question about playing in the big games, because we have played in two very big games this year. UNC, prime time, 6 o'clock, packed stadium
It was one of the three best games
of that weekend,
opening weekend.
and the West Virginia game of that weekend. 12 o'clock game. FS1. A lot of publicity about it. Hostile atmosphere.
Yeah.
So, the point was made that, yes, this is actually good for the team going into this game, because, again, it's a sellout. You're going to have the stadium absolutely jam packed. It's going to be loud. Wish it was on ABC. Collie, it would be on ABC if if they hadn't forced this to the ACC network, because they're doing Nebraska, Michigan, and when you only can get Notre Dame a couple times a year, I think they would have thrown them on ABC because they know it's going to do a number.
Yep.
By the way, how are you watching the game? Since it's not on, it's on ACC network.
I am signing into my father-in-law's Verizon FiOS account to
I
watch
thought
on
you had
ESPN.
Plus.
Nah,
You don't have Plus? Oh,
nah.
Hulu Live has it all.
There you go. I've got
Um,
ESPN Plus, but you don't get the ACC network proper. You just get ACC network extra.
really?
Yeah.
Okay. For the what is it, 23 million people that with Comcast, which I think 17 or 18 of them are on the East Coast. Call your cable subscriber and tell them to just get the ACC network. or do with everybody else. There's been so many people. Why is cable losing customers? Things like this. So super interesting.
Big time.
All right. Well, Brian, before we jump into knowing the enemy, knowing the Irish, we are going to take a quick pause for a message from our digital partners.
As we take a quick break, we'd like to tell you about getting your free website report from our digital partner, Grassroots Digital Marketing Studio. They'll tell you how your website ranks on Google, on-site SEO, and social media. No commitment to buy anything. You can get your free report by visiting grassrootsdigitalstudio.com/free-website-report. Now back to the episode.
All right, Brian, let's start it off here. Know the enemy. We're going to jump on the offensive side of the ball. And
Let's go.
let's start with the offensive line because there has been some struggles there for them. And Brian, here's some of the data I've got for you. They are out of 130 teams. They are 128th in sacks allowed. They're averaging over 4.5 per game, and they're losing close to 25 yards a game, which that is a big number, regardless of the number of sacks. Tackles for loss allowed. They're 129 out of 130.
Ouch.
Yeah, just about 9.5 per game allowed, and right at 36 yards. So this team's losing behind the line of scrimmage close to 60 yards a game. I mean, that's insane. What is the tape telling you, Brian?
The tape is telling me that the interior of that offensive line is giving up a ton of penetration, and the tackles are only average at best in pass pro. So they're getting their mostly immobile quarterback sacked a lot, and they are making their running backs have to run the hump and get outside in the alley because the only place they're gaining positive yardage is when they are able to get to the outside alley. They are not getting hardly anything up the gut. Yeah, I mean across the board, I mean big time tackles for loss, and they're not allowing their backs to really get to the second level in the middle of the offense. And that's a big problem because that means that their backs are having to run laterally way more than they should in the running game.
Yeah, and it makes sense, right? I mean, they lost 3 NFL linemen. You know, Liam Eichenberg went in the second round, Aaron Banks went in the second round, the guard, and Robert Hainsey went in the fourth round. Most teams, even the really, really teams that recruit at the level they recruit at, when you lose that kind of experience and talent and guys who are getting evaluated and getting drafted that high, you don't replace it. I think it's interesting, Brian. You talk about their rushing numbers. How bad is that? I mean, are they even cracking 100 a game?
No, they're averaging. What did I see? 2.7 yards per carry.
Oh, they're making
Yeah,
us look good.
it's atrocious. And a lot of that is that negative yardage that you're talking about. They're not getting thrown for a 1 yard loss and then they're throwing a 12-yard gain on top of that. They're getting thrown for a 5 or 6 yard loss and then throwing a 7 yard gain on it. So the net is pretty bad. And it's trickling down, and when you don't have a quarterback that can move around a lot, that's not opening up any other lanes for those rushers to really get to that second level where they're really dangerous when they can get to the second level. They're just having such a hard time doing it right now.
I hear you. And you already mentioned the quarterback a couple times. They're in a true debacle right now, Brian. You've got the 6'3", 226 three-star Jack Cohn, the Wisconsin transfer. He's got solid numbers through 5 games, 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 60% completion. His best game was clearly out of the gate against FSU in that shootout. You mentioned him being immobile. Obviously, if he was so immobile that he's getting killed, why is he still the quarterback? What is he bringing to the table?
So the big thing he's bringing to the table is he can make all the throws. He's got the arm, and he is definitely the more polished, the more seasoned, the more experienced player of the the big two. Well, we'll talk about Pine here in a few minutes.
Yeah.
And he's the known quantity. He's the safer choice, and I feel like that's kind of where they are, especially with their struggles on the offensive line. They kind of went with the safer choice, thinking that would kind of buoy them a little bit, despite his shortcomings with his athleticism.
Yeah, and it makes sense too because a couple years ago at Wisconsin, before he got overtaken, he had a solid season. Had like 23 touchdowns to like 9 interceptions, 62% completion percentage. It was like, okay, this makes sense. And then last week, Drew Prime, the 5'11", 200-pound 4-star, he gets some significant playing time, and it was on top of a game after the Wisconsin game where he got some time there too. So far, only completing 50% of his passes, only for 224 yards and a couple touchdowns. But clearly, watching that Cincinnati game, when he came in, he was a spark. He
Yep.
was a spark. He got them back in that game. What do you see on the tape from him?
I mean, he's not the elite athlete, but he's a significant upgrade in athleticism from Cone.
More Ian Book? More Ian
Yeah.
Book? Okay.
Yeah. He's not going to be that guy that's going out there and completely tearing you up, but he's he'll get first downs, he'll scramble. You can design runs to him and feel comfortable doing that. And in the passing game, he does throw a pretty decent deep ball. He's not super accurate in the intermediate, and that's where a lot of his incompletions are coming in.
Okay.
But when he sees guys coming open in the back of the defense, he does a good job of getting the ball out there to them, and he still does a pretty good job of kind of that short passing game to the running backs where they can get those athletes out in space.
All right. Let me ask this, Brian. When you were looking at the tape with him, was he much quicker as soon? Because obviously we're showing here, and the tape's showing the stats are showing. Is he quicker to adjust as soon as the line breaks down? Is he immediately moving, getting out the pocket, trying to do something, or is he staying in there a little longer?
When he is comfortable with the play, he will stay in there longer. When even if there is pressure bearing down, when he isn't as comfortable with the play, as soon as that first read isn't there, he's willing to take off if he feels any sort of pressure. So it's really kind of a mixed bag. A lot of times when it's a throw that he's comfortable with, he'll hang in there to try to make it. But I mean, based on the depth chart that Notre Dame put out there, it looks like Cone is still the number one guy. We'll see how long that lasts, how quick the hook is, and or whether they end up mixing in Pine with Cone throughout the game, like we've seen a couple other teams do against us so far.
All right, let me ask this, Brian, just straight up. What's your preference for Saturday night? Who do you want taking 85 or 90% of the snaps?
I want Cone. I want, because he's the known quantity. He's the guy that we've got the most tape on, and he's also the guy that if we can hold their running game in check, we can make a very one-dimensional offense.
All right, yeah, I'm with you on that, and also just from hearing from the different beat reporters throughout the week, up in South Bend, it looks like they're going to go the Jack Cone route. How quick is the hook? I think that's going to be very interesting to see. Although with Jay Ham, I think he would make a quick adjustment. I don't think we'd have to wait for 2.5 or 3 quarters. But the other piece too is, it goes back to the offensive line, but also Pine. If you decide to throw 5 offensive linemen who have never been in an atmosphere like it's going to be Saturday night, and then you throw a quarterback in an atmosphere like it's going to be Saturday night, at least you can say with Cone, well, he played some Big Ten teams. He played in tough environments. He's got that going for him. So do you want 5 guys or 3 guys who have played in tough environments, or do you want 6 guys who've never played in a tough environment?
Yeah.
And
Cone definitely has played in games that matter in atmospheres like that before. More than likely something that would be akin to Beaver Stadium, I would imagine. Big house. I can't remember how many games he played in, whether he saw both of those stadiums, but he's definitely having that Big Ten resume. He's definitely played in at least one stadium that would have something in the ballpark of what Lane will offer. So he's probably the um, better choice in terms of being able to handle that type of environment.
The Horseshoe and then the Sea of Red down in Nebraska were
Okay.
his two big ones. So, and he also played in a Rose Bowl atmosphere. So, yeah. All
Yep.
right, Brian, let's roll on to this. You've mentioned those running backs a couple times. They're not looking the best so far this year, but man, we know that they are dangerous. And I want to start with of the 1-2 punch. Let's start with Kyron Williams, 5'9", 199-pound, 4-star so far this year, 2.89, 289 yards, 3.8 per carry, and 3 touchdowns. Also 174 receiving yards, 12.4 per reception with 2 touchdowns. And I tell you, last year, man, 1,400 yards from scrimmage, hell of a year. What is he bringing to the table of this 1-2 punch with him and Chris Tyree?
Yeah, he's the more shifty running back and probably a hair better in the passing game than Tyree. Great use of patience when running the outside zone, kind of lets things set up and then kind of gets in the alley and can make guys miss at the second level. And does a really good job of catching the ball out of the outfield and kind of hitting home runs that way. Good vision in the open field to turn a small gain into a big one for that offense.
Nice. And obviously, the second guy of this 1-2 punch is a guy, if you're a Hokie fan, if you're a Hokie fan, you should be familiar with him. If you're here in the RVA with us, you should be super familiar with him. Chris Tyree out of Thomas Dale in the RVA here, 4-star. He was the top all-purpose back when he came out. He was a top 75 player. He was a top 5 player in Virginia, one of those we missed on.
Yep.
5'9" and a half, 190 pounds, a triple threat to me. Hadn't got that many carries this year, 98 yards with a touchdown, 117 yards in the passing game with a touchdown, and then 238 in the kick return game with a touchdown. He's averaging almost 30 per kick return. So we see another elite kick returner, which is becoming just
It's
very,
a
very,
theme.
very worrisome, as good as it's played. And last year, 1,000 all-purpose yards, 4 touchdowns, and he's fast, like super
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah, he's definitely fast. He's more the one cut back and go. He's got speed for days once he gets to the second level. Can really affect the game in the return game. I know he did fumble a kickoff return against Cincinnati that set them up for a field goal to make it a 10-0 game there. But when he gets them in there, he's doing a lot of good things with the football, setting them up in pretty good field position in the kick return game. And he is also very dangerous in the passing game. Much like Williams does a good job in the open field, he has that vision, which you expect from a guy that is also a kick returner, right? Getting the ball in the open field and being able to read those blocks in space. So in terms of home run threat, he's a little bit more of the home run threat, but isn't as much of a impact for you down by down, just because it is a little bit more feast or famine with him because of his run style.
Absolutely. And again, it's just one of those guys that it's a pain to see. And especially it's more of a pain to see when he says, I can't wait to smell Virginia air and play in that stadium. That always is a little just you just ripped it out. Just ripped out the heart, Chris. Don't say things like that.
Yeah, I mean, you
You
love that
had
he's saying it. You'd love that if he was saying it, as a Hokie and not visiting from another
exactly.
team. So, I mean, when we first started this podcast, they had just kind of closed on that class, and we talked about how that was a big miss for us, and we're seeing that kind of come to fruition here. With him having some success, good success as a freshman, and even with a completely shoddy offensive line still being able to make some plays here and there in this offense this year.
Yeah. So that's to me that's the big thing is we've kind of correlated that offensive line's bad, but if you give one of these guys or both these guys a crease, they can make you pay. So,
Yep.
we'll discuss some of those points later. All right, Brian, this guy, Jesus Lord, their top receiving threat, Michael Mayer, the tight end, the 2020 5-star, second tight end in the country, top 25 player. He's 6'4", he's 249. I looked at some of his when he was at the showcases, runs like a low 4.8. His shuttle drills are pretty much those elite, like what you see NFL tight ends do.
Yep.
And then obviously his size, he's built like a prototypical tight end, and he's like 19.
Yep.
So far this year, 360 yards, 3 touchdowns, 11.3 per catch. Again, leading both in yards and receptions. Um, he could be a big problem, even if we are able to create pressure, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's the guy that's moving the sticks for them. They try to do the short passing game with the running backs, and then hit Mike Mayer on some stick moving routes. And I think the big thing that he brings to the table is, like you said, a good combination of above average speed for a tight end at the collegiate level, paired with the typical NFL size. And that's going to be something that we've got to keep in check, because we want to be able to get this team off the field, and he's the guy that extends drives for them. And the receivers, they're solid, but they are more. They'll hit them on like a 20 or 30 yard play, and then they disappear for a quarter. This is the guy that you've got to worry about down by down, series by series, every time they're on the field.
Essentially, whether it probably be cone or pine, they're going to be looking for him. It's probably their first read every time is going to be wherever he's going.
He's either the primary threat or he is the 100% secondary route, no matter what the primary is.
All right, let me ask this, just looking at the tape. Is he primary inline, or are we going to see him at several positions?
He's going to line up all over the offense. They'll split him out.
Okay.
They'll put him in the wing. They'll put him in line. They'll even move him into the backfield on occasion. So he'll line up all over the field. They try to find creative ways to get him open where you can't just, jam him off the line of scrimmage to get him off his route. So that's going to be something we need to definitely focus on and make sure that we don't die a death by 1,000 cuts, and that they keep their offense on the field for long extended drives and win that time of possession.
Yep, something we can't do, and I just hate you using the word creative with somebody else's offense and not ours. But I digress. All right, we're going to roll on, guys, and now we're going to look at the defense. And, let's just be straight up. If you're a Virginia Tech Hokie fan and you don't know who Marcus Freeman is, you probably haven't been paying attention. He is a super up-and-comer in the world of the collegiate football coaching ranks. He's a former Buckeye. He only played 1 year in the NFL back in 2009 for a couple teams, because essentially in the offseason in 2010, they discovered he had an enlarged heart. He had to retire. And not long after that, he started in the coaching ranks, started as a grad assistant back at Ohio State, then been coaching linebackers, Kent State, worked his way up, got to Purdue, got to be a co-defensive coordinator, and then obviously over the last few years with another Buckeye, Luke Fickell, down at Cincinnati, where last year they were one of the best teams all around the country. In the defense he created, Brian, they were 8th in points per game. They were 15th in yards. They were 11th in forced turnovers. They were elite.
Yep.
Lost a close game to Georgia, and then he essentially got snatched away by Notre Dame and Brian Kelly. And Brian Kelly said that he hopes that he's the next coach there. I hope he's not. What are you seeing from him schematically, though, Brian? We've got the story behind who he is. What is he doing on the field?
Yeah, so when he was at Cincinnati, they ran a slightly different system than what they're doing now. Some of that is just preference by Kelly. Some of that is personnel that you don't quite have to make a wholesale transition. But they're still running kind of a 4-2-5, but they are going more of that multiple front look that Freeman was famous for at Cincinnati, with occasionally getting that dollar, that 3-2-6 look up front. But the base defense is still a 4-2-5. They run a lot of cover 1 and cover 3 on the back end there. Very
You said,
much likes to. What's that?
you said it reminded you.
Yeah, reminds, at least on the back end, reminds me some of Bud in terms of how they like to work their coverages and then mix that with the blitz packages.
All right.
And in
What
terms
about
of just philosophy, since I just said, Bud, it's an aggressive philosophy, and their goal is to, really clog the A and B gaps on both sides of the offense and kind of force everything into C gap in the running game. And, in terms of the passing game, they're coming after you and trying to make you make mistakes and get some turnovers there. So they do a good job on the back end of keeping things in front of them. Their corners aren't elite, but they do a good job of not getting beat deep very often.
now when you talk about A and B gaps going to see, this is what Bud used to talk about spill lanes, right? You want it to spill outside to
Yep.
where he's allowing the fast guys to get there versus just punishing you up the middle.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. You're funneling everything to the spill lanes. That's where you got your. Usually, you have in the older system, the whip, the rover can make the play there. Your backer is there as well. So that's generally the idea of trying to force everything to those spill lanes.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about some of these guys, Brian, because somebody, the Virginia guy, they had to replace Jeremiah Usukamora. They had to replace him, and that guy was all over the place in the old system. And I think because of how they're running this new system there, they found that guy who was already a proven starter in Kyle Hamilton, 6'4", 220, safety, 2020 5-star. He was the top safety in the country, top 15 overall. And
Yep.
so far this year, 27 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 3 interceptions. I'm assuming he's everywhere.
Yeah, he's everywhere. I mean, he's listed as a free safety, but they use him in just about every way that you can use a defensive back. He's at free. He's at their strong safety sometimes. He's in the nickel. He plays their equivalent of the whip, which they actually call rover. He kind of does it all on the back end there. And really solid tackler, but really great in coverage, both zone and man. Uses his length really well, and does a good job of when he gets his hands on receivers and ball carriers, getting them to the ground as well. So keep an eye on him. He had some of the sound bites, I think, this week with what the referee was saying on a what looked like a blatant hold against him on I think a quarterback scramble last week. Ref said something about you're an All-American, you can't get blocked or something like that, or you can't get held. So he was in the headlines this week, making a comment on that. So keep an eye out and see what he does this week. But he's definitely one that we've got to account for every snap, because he's gonna make some plays.
All right. Let me just look forward a little bit, Brian, because obviously he'll have one more year of eligibility after this. He's going to be his size, his length, whatever. He's going to be a first round safety, isn't he? Which is very few and far between.
Yeah, he's if he's not, he's definitely a early day 2 guy. He's going to be one of the first two safeties off the board, more than likely. So
All right.
definitely keep an eye out for him, because he's a playmaker.
All right. Well, let's now something you talked about earlier, Brian. You talked about how Marcus Freeman loves to clog those A and B gaps. And kind of looking through here, he's got J.D. Bertrand, first year starter at linebacker as a 4-star, 6'1", 230. Made a big impact right out of the gate as a starter. 48 tackles, 1.5 sacks so far this year. Where is he specifically? Is he Mike? Is he Will? Is he weak side? Where is he linebacker wise, Brian?
Yeah, so he's Will. He does a lot in the in disrupting both the run game and then has a good amount of coverage responsibility in the pass game. But he does a good job of disrupting the running game. He's the reason why they're really stout against the run. And he's a good tackler and surprisingly really good in coverage. I've seen him run with you know, really good, really fast running backs in coverage, really good running with some of the slot receivers as well. Um, doesn't really look out of place there. It doesn't look like he's losing any athleticism to those guys. So definitely looks the part there. He does sometimes lose leverage in the running game. So that's something if we can get kind of outside, we might be able to exploit that a little bit. He gave up a couple runs where he had kind of edge responsibility and lost that leverage. So that might be a way we could take advantage of him a little bit. But in terms of his style of play, he's definitely a disruptor and a solid overall tackler.
Excellent, Brian. What are the core? What are the core of the linebackers look? I mean, is everybody like him? Or are they like Hamilton? You feel like there's no weaknesses in his game. Bertrand, you've talked about that outside run leverage. Is the linebacking core more like that? They're good, but they have their spots where they can be beat.
Yeah, very much that. There are times where you can take advantage of them, but they're very good between the tackles. I hope that we can run between the tackles against them, but that's what they do. They do a really good job of kind of pushing everything outside. Um,
Is
and
your hope we don't start by running between the tackles early?
yeah, I hope we kind of spread them out a little bit and get them out of that 4-2-5 look and maybe into the more 3-2-6, and then we can kind of hit them in the middle.
Got it. All right. Well, Brian, even if we get them out of that look and we have to drop back to pass in the Isaiah Foskey is a scary looking defensive end. 6'5", 260, a 4-star. He was a top 15 defensive end when he came out. I mean, he's prototypical. That build is a prototypical defensive end build. Um, you know, really started producing this year. 21 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, and a forced fumble. And you educate the people because they're going to hear this on Saturday night. They call what he plays Viper, which is cool. But what does it mean?
Yeah, aside from sounding cool, aside from sounding like you're in Top Gun, Viper is essentially a hybrid defensive end in this system. So if they're in a 4-man front look, he's going to be the one of the rush ends. He will play Sam linebacker in some of the other 3-man front looks, and especially like the 3-2 or the 3-3. And if they go with the like a 3-4 look, he will line up as a traditional edge rusher there. So he kind of has 3 hats that he wears in this defense. And with that build, I mean, he really does a good job of doing all of those. He's just athletic enough to kind of make all that work. And he is, I'd say pretty heavy for a true rush end or edge defender. But that size helps him when he slides into the linebacker role and is kind of running downhill. So you got to watch him, especially I saw he had a sack fumble against Cincinnati. He's made some other plays in some other games, so he can definitely impact the game. And he impacts the game even when he's not necessarily at the football. So we got to make sure we got to get a hat on him every time.
All right, I got a quick question about when he's on that when they're in the 4-2-5. and you said he's down at the end position. Is he playing like a 9 technique, or is he a little closer to the offensive tackle there?
So sometimes he is in a 6 hand in the dirt. Sometimes he's in a 9 hand in the dirt. Sometimes he's standing up,
Okay,
and kind of moving around between techniques. So it really kind of depends. They let him kind of freestyle a little bit, and that's one of the hallmarks of a Freeman defense is that he trusts the instincts of his players. So a lot of times, you'll see them freestyle a little bit within the parameters that he's set, right? Um,
okay,
so that's something to keep an eye on as well.
got it. Two other guys to look out here for, Brian. I know we don't have as much info on them. Twin brothers, couple 4 3 stars up out of New Jersey, Jason and Justin Ademiola. Um, Jason plays defensive end. I think he's a secondary Viper. Might play the opposite side as well. And then Jason is a defensive tackle. So just 2 other names to listen for on Saturday night, guys. 2 brothers there. All right, Brian. So last 30 minutes or so, we've been talking about them. And what we've been doing every week is we've been talking about versions of the Hokies. Alpha was great.
Yeah.
Beta was okay. But the last 2 versions haven't been that good.
Yeah.
So this week we're at Epsilon. And I'm a nerd, and the Epsilon definition is an arbitrary small positive quantity.
Is that what we need to
Listen,
win?
well, and a small positive quantity for the defense is going to be really solid, like where they are, statistically and how they've been playing. For the offense, who I'll take small positive versus small negative right now, Brian, because as we've been talking about it, we've got 3 keys here, and the first thing that when we were talking the other day, and you said to me, we've got to win at the point of attack, and we've freaking got to block to run the ball.
Yeah. And we got to be able to run the ball. And like I said, I don't think necessarily attacking right into the meat of that defense early is the answer, but we got to find effective ways to hopefully get to that spill area, but have blocking there where we can get up the alley and start to get them out of their preferred look there. But I think some of the other things is that we're going to need to work in some play action but we need to get the running game going first for that to be truly effective, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If we don't get the running game going early, play action is going to mean nothing to them.
Because
Can I
Cincinnati
ask
burned
this?
them pretty good because they had an effective running game, even if it wasn't necessarily burning the world up. They were
Yeah,
effective in the running game, and they were able to hit them over the top a couple times on play action.
it's true. The other thing, Brian, we were been talking about. You talked about scramble drills, getting downfield. Is this a game you'd like to see? We hated what they did with West Virginia, running some sprint outs, essentially where we can get. It's in a way, it's a little scramble because if he rolls out and there's nothing there, and they stay disciplined, BB might have 4 or 5 yards every time to just take the angle, go. I know you don't like cutting off a field, but in this case, more.
Yeah, and I'd like to see when BB escapes the pocket, kind of escaping laterally at least initially, where he can still try to make that throw downfield in the scramble drill because I feel like our receivers may not be open initially, but I saw on tape where, especially in the Cincinnati game, but also against FSU, where as a play kind of drew on, there were opportunities to get the ball downfield in the passing game. So I think that's one way to get it going, and the short passing game is going to be important as well because I think we can get them kind of moving laterally and get them like open that box up a little bit. That'll enable us to try to run between the tackles a little bit more and hopefully get some movement in there.
All right, so probably things like we saw out of the UNC game that we have amazingly not been there as much before. The little swings and stuff to the running backs, the bubble screen, not the tunnel, the bubble.
Yeah,
Don't get them
and
confused.
run variations off that, right? So once you
You
show them
hope
that
so.
look, run some stuff, run some variations off that where they'll, potentially bite on something they've seen and now something else is open.
Yeah, I mean, I think the short pass game is going to be critical because they are going to they're going to get some sacks. They're going to get us scrambling off time because they are a good defensive line. They
Yep.
have some solid linebacker play. Um, and the one thing that we've talked about is, and you hit it here, we didn't talk about any of the defensive backs because in reality, none of them jumped off the tape. And you've already mentioned it. They can be gotten there. Can they be absolutely exploited? Probably not. Definitely not by the way we've been playing offense.
Yeah.
But we've had 13 days since our last game. 13 days to self-evaluate. If we don't start seeing the changes coming, and they're not coming, and if you're going to say, well, we're going to win with what we've got, we're not going to win many with what we've got because we
Yeah.
don't have a dominant offensive line to get that running game springing for 200 yards a game.
Yeah. We if we don't improve on offense, we've got enough to get us to a bowl game, but we don't have enough to challenge for the Coastal. I mean, if you look at the teams that are in a as good or better position than us at this point, you got to look first at Pitt, right? And the thing that scares me about Pitt is that I'm not so much concerned that we won't be able to score some points against their defense. I'm just worried about if they keep rolling the way they are, that they'll be able to score more points on offense than we can score on offense.
Exactly.
And that's not knocking our defense, but if they can get to 30, that's probably enough.
Yep, I agree with that. All right, well, let's talk about the Epsilon version of the defense, Brian. We mentioned Tyree and Williams. I mean, we have to tackle like we did Carolina, Middle Tennessee, Richmond. We cannot afford. We cannot afford to tackle like we did against West Virginia against those guys.
Yeah, got to bring these guys down because if they get to that next level, they are dangerous. And I think another thing that we need to talk about is that we need to, much like a lot of teams have already against Notre Dame this year, we need to force snaps behind the line of scrimmage. We need to get some tackles for loss very consistently. I'd say, close to a quarter of their total snaps need to be either a sack or some sort of tackle for loss. If we can do that, then that's going to put them behind the chains and make them extremely one-dimensional, and that's when they get in trouble. And really, they would have to lean on their tight end to kind of bail them out.
Yeah, and we've already talked about it. They're giving up close to about 14 tackles behind the line. And Brian, you're saying about a quarter. I mean, so you're saying we've got to even go above their average and probably hit somewhere
15 to 18.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, which would be a lot, which would really set the game up for Waller and Strong and Armani to attack because you get a sack and it's 3rd and 15. Either they're going to run a draw and say, well, your offense isn't going to do anything. We'll just punt it away. And the last piece, Brian, I think me and you talked about, and it's what our defense have been good at. Yards don't matter, right?
Yep.
Points matter. I don't care.
Points matter.
You've been saying it. I don't care if you take it at the 15 and you drive it to the 30. You and yourself, you just got 55 yards. But that is going to be one long field goal. That you're knowing Brian Kelly, he's not going to take the risk. He'll punt deep. So drive stoppers. When they cross that midfield, you mentioned to me, you said they cross midfield, that's where they have to stop.
Yep. And Hamilton has done a good job of mixing in some blitzes or some different coverages that really throw teams off once they cross the 50 this year.
Yes, he has.
And so hopefully he keeps that up where it gets us off the field, forces a field goal, whatever it may be, and hopefully even force a turnover or a sack fumble or something like that, interception that gets us the ball back. And they've done a good job with that this year, and hopefully they keep that up against Notre Dame because they did turn the ball over against Cincinnati, so they are not a clean and perfect team with the football. So there's going to be some opportunities for the defense to get the ball back on those plays.
Absolutely. Well, Brian, we've talked about them. We've talked about us. It's time to give our predictions here, Brian, and I'll let you lead the way this week, man.
I feel good about this game in a lot of ways, but I'm just concerned about the offense, and I'm so concerned. I think that it's just going to be too much. I think it's going to be 23-14. I think we're going to struggle to really consistently run the football, and I think that's going to be our undoing. Um, and ultimately probably have a turnover that really kind of puts the knife in our back to close it out there. But I think it's a close game for 3 quarters, and then they kind of we finally make that mistake that really gets them the double digit advantage there at the end.
Yeah, I'm not far behind you. I put it close. I do put Notre Dame winning this game 21-17. And for me, it's just the offensive eye test. We're failing it in every way, and the statistics prove it. And you can say, well, we're just missing one or two passes. One or two passes don't make you almost, one of basically the quarter worst teams in the country offensively. They don't. If you want to argue that point that, oh, it's just a pass here, just one run lane, if he cut this way, no, no. If you were 50th, yes. One or two passes put you in the top 25. One or two passes doesn't bring you from being terrible to being a really good offense. It just doesn't. And I think what I think it's going to be, Brian, is I think our defense are going to probably play their asses off. I think that crowd's going to be electric. I think they're going to have a tough time hearing. They're going to probably have some false start penalties. But I think what's probably going to happen is where one time, I think defense is going to put us in some good positions, and their defense is going to put them in some good positions, and they're going to capitalize just a little more. And we've been going through this every time when one of us or both of us choose a loss, we're going to say how we win. And Brian, kick it off with what you got the first big thing.
Yeah, and I already said it when we were talking about the defense, but the defense has to force field goals instead of touchdowns. If they have good drives, they need to end in 3 points, not touchdowns.
All right, so key one there, guys, field goals. And obviously in Brian's scenario, you've got them getting down there 5 times, kicking 3 field goals. You say you need less than you need more than 3. You need 4 to 5 for us to win. And I'm similar. I've got them scoring 3 touchdowns. So if you're telling me we hold them to a couple field goals, yeah, we can win this game. This next thing we brought up here was, and Brian has already said it, we have to establish the run early and then mix in the passing attack as we get into the game. And it's true. And are we thinking, well, run and then start taking shots? No. Start peppering easy passes. Start peppering smart passes. Essentially, what I hope we don't do, Brian, is I really hope we start outside zone. I hope we start outside in running the ball. Yep. I hope this is not Wake Forest last year where we literally ran at their best player the whole game. And we know that the best part of this defense is here. So I hope that doesn't happen. But if we can get it going and just attack the edges to meet earlier to where the linebackers are maybe hesitating a few seconds, tenth of a second in the middle of the field, where later in the game, when you run a jet motion, then you can come back with that inside zone. And because they took that awkward step, one of the linemen can get up there and drive them out the way.
Yeah. What about some actual true read option?
Hold on. Am I twitching here? Yeah, read options. Yes.
Yeah.
Because, again, it's attacking the outside, right?
Yeah.
And then it's making them have to make decisions, and eventually they make the wrong decisions. You are able to go up on that inside zone. Something like that.
We talked about them. Yeah, we talked about them occasionally losing leverage in the running game on the edge. That's what we got to take advantage of early so we can kind of loosen them up so we can run inside. But the other thing we need to do, back to the defense, we got to force them to drive the field long, and we've done a good job with that, right? So far this year, we've done a good job with controlling field position and making them drive the field. And what that does is the more plays they have to run to move the ball down the field, the more prone they are to make a mistake at some point. Whether that is, on the offensive line where they give up a key sack on third down, or whether that's making turnovers or, giving up a fumble, whatever it may be, the further you make a team have to go, the more apt they are to do something to screw up that drive.
Very true. Last piece, we've done this very well this year. It's why we're 3-1. And I know if you follow Twitter or social media or listen, you would swear some people, the way they react, we are an 0-4 team. We're 3-1. We're in a division race for the ACC. And the reason we've been able to do that is offensive and special teams have played super clean, minimal turnovers. We have to keep that here. If we turn the ball over in any sort of capacity, driving in for a score, deep in the zone like we did against Richmond, or in the middle of the field, if we do that, we're giving them the extra opportunities. We have to get those opportunities, as Brian just said a few seconds ago.
So, yeah, we're going to need them to generate points on our end. We can't give them something back to offset that.
Now, if we do all this, do I think like we blow the doors off of them, win by 2-3 touchdowns? No. I think it's just a flip script of probably what we're thinking of our scores. Yeah. Instead of Notre Dame, we think Virginia Tech because we did everything perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like a 3 to 9 point victory the other way if we can put all these things together. And a lot of that's going to depend on if we put those things together and then we also force like a pick six or a special teams touchdown or something like that. That's something that could really kind of put it at the higher end there. So yeah, I mean, we are picking against the Hokies this week, but we are still positive that there's a chance out there. To pull the win. We got to put a lot of pieces together this week, guys.
And we got to see improvement from a certain part of the team. All right, Brian, let's hit over to Saturday pick'ems. Your boys went 500 last week. Very rough week. Spelled all out. Brian's still 27-25, 2 games above. I'm right at 26-26. Here's the funny part. We literally line up and just say, let's pick these games. We aren't going through games saying like, I don't like that game. If I was actually making a bet, I wouldn't dare bet on that game. But because we want to talk about the ACC teams and some of the bigger matchups, that's why we're pulling these on here. Maybe next year, Brian, we'll have this like, I'm doing this on this game, but this is I'm not counting it. It's going to be our take-back game.
Well, the game we're leading off with, we're not stacking the deck because if I had any fucking say in this, I would not be picking this game.
But you have to, Brian, and guess what? Since you are leading, you get the honors.
Man, this is a coin flip. So, Duke is weird. Georgia Tech is weird. Bipolar. I don't know what to expect from them.
3.5. Georgia Tech, 3.5. So you got a little bit of leeway there.
I'm going to take Georgia Tech and hope I don't have to curse them next week because I think they've improved just enough, and I think Gunner's just not quite going to be able to get it done against them. So yeah, I'll take GT here.
I'm actually going to go with you right there. Georgia Tech did not have a good game last week. I can remember, right?
Yeah, it's ebb and flow.
They're ebb and flow, so this is their good week. I think I'm right on. I got to check that out. My brain's. Yeah, they had the bad week because they got blown out by Pitt. Georgia Tech rebounds to win this week. Duke, got blown out by North Carolina. I think the Duke trajectory is there. Georgia Tech, lay the 3.5. Georgia Tech wins by 10 in probably a fun game to watch.
Yep.
All right, Brian, we'll go with the next one here. UVA Louisville. Louisville laying 2.5 there at home. Essentially, Louisville's getting the home flavor. And I'm going to go with Louisville. With Louisville, at least parts of this season, we've seen their offense click and score. They're going against UVA, who, as bad as Miami looked, Miami still almost got to 30 and almost beat. As bad, I mean, Miami looked wretched. Like
Yep.
Miami had no business in that game, and UVA let them potentially have the chance to win the game. Louisville has looked more up than down, but I think Louisville will have enough of a defense to where there's probably going to be about 8 possessions apiece in this game. I think Louisville's going to score on 6 to 7 because UVA's offense defense is just horrible, where
Yep.
UVA is going to score on 5. So something like 42-35, 49-35. But in that case, give me Louisville, and I'll lay the points to UVA.
I'm gonna take that as well. Give me Louisville, and it's very much a similar story there. I think Louisville is settling in and trending in the right direction on both sides of the ball, particularly on their offensive side.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to do enough to score against that awful UVA defense. That offense for UVA is going to have to be damn near perfect in order to pull out the W.
It's very, very true. All right, Brian. Surprising game of two pretty solid teams. Syracuse and Wake Forest. Wake Forest laying the 6.5. What say you on this one?
I'm going to go with Wake here. I think they're going to be able to do enough to win that one by about 10 points. I think Hughes is a much better than previously advertised team. Their running game and defense are respectable, but I just don't think they have enough in the tank to go 4 quarters with Wake and keep it that close.
I'm with you on that one all the way. I think Hughes came back to earth last week against FSU, and especially the way FSU had looked. They got into a fight with them and lost. I think you can see that downward spiral continue, especially when one of their better receivers goes in the portal and winds up interest from Texas A&M. After hearing the Gerard story on Don the other week, I wonder what happened, why he went in the portal. And again, portal's going to be good, but man, it's going to be some dirty crap in the portal over the next few years.
Yep.
All right, Brian. Next one, FSU versus UNC. I had to double check this number, and I'm going to double check it again just to make sure I'm looking right. FSU is the underdog. Not surprising.
No.
North Carolina is laying 17.5 points. I don't. FSU has looked like a dumpster fire. They looked much better last week. I can't lay 17.5 the way Carolina's has been up and down and has played.
They have also been very bipolar. They just their highs have been higher than Georgia Tech, and their lows haven't quite been as low as Georgia Tech.
True.
But yeah, they've definitely been kind of up and down as well. But you pretty much have to say in this case, FSU has one of its worst days while UNC has one of its best if they're going to cover that 17.5. So I'm going to go FSU here.
Yeah, we're locking again together here.
We are locking up across the board here so far.
All right.
That's okay though.
All right, I got a smelly line for you for Friday night on the West Coast. Stanford coming off the upset of number 3 Oregon goes to Arizona State. Arizona State has looked good and bad at times. They are ranked currently. They are laying 12 points to Stanford.
I don't get that. It. I mean, I would say this should be like a 6.5, maybe 7.5 line, not 12. Give me Stanford just because that's a weird. That just maybe Vegas knows something I don't know.
Well,
they've known before.
And that's why I'm going to just go against you because we need to break the monotony of going on the same thing. And I'm wondering if it's whole thing of did Stanford play their best game against a really good team, and now they have another very good team in front of them. Can they get up again? And taking a look, I believe this one, it's at Arizona State. The line, wow. Well, we locked these in earlier, so we're going to just stay at the 12. The line actually went up a point since earlier today when we put these down, Brian. So I'm going to take Arizona State,
Okay.
and uh, I think hangover and short week on the road. Uh, Probably going to be a good environment there in Tempe. We already mentioned this game once, Brian, and Red River Shootout. It's not the Red River rivalry. It's the Red River Shootout at the State Fair, Texas. Texas and Oklahoma. Oklahoma laying 3.5. Very short line. And the question you have to ask yourself is, when is Oklahoma going to get right? When is it going to click? Rattler's a good quarterback. They have some talented, you know, you know, playmakers all over the field. When is the offensive line going to get right? And I think in this case, it's going to be in a rivalry game. I think it's going to be, how many times do you see it where a team has been playing other teams? They look mediocre, they look blah, and then all of a sudden, the team you hate pops across the street, and everybody gets focused that week. So I'm going to take Oklahoma, lay the 3.5.
I'll go against you here.
Okay.
I'm not saying Texas is back. We don't say that on this program. Um,
If we do it sarcastically.
yeah. But I think Oklahoma just hasn't found the offensive click that they really need. And I feel like Texas does a good job of kind of keeping them a little bit off balance on defense. So I think overall ends up probably going to take Texas out right here, but I think Texas pulls it off here.
All right. So upset. Big 12 cannibalizes itself even more. Brian takes Texas. I'm going to take Oklahoma. All right. We've got some Virginia Tech ties to the next game, Brian,
Yes, we
as
do.
South Carolina and the Fighting Shane Beamers go play Tennessee and potentially Hendon Hooker. I know he got knocked out of the Florida game, but, it's college football. It seems like these guys come back quicker than other things.
Yep.
And he did play last week against Missouri, and he had a great game. So, bye week has completely thrown up where we are in my head. Tennessee, it has it's messed up my mind because we didn't come in here.
What games happened last week? Oh yeah,
Games happened 2 weeks ago. Tennessee's laying 10.5, and Tennessee for this game is at home. It's a high noon kick, Brian. 10.5 is the
okay.
line. What you got?
Give me the Fighting Hookers over the Fighting Shane Beamers.
The Fighting Hookers over the Cox.
Yeah, Fighting Hookers over the Cox.
I'm with
Hookers
you.
Hookers are taking down the Cox. Hey,
Get a sound machine on the board here. I'm with you. Tennessee's played significantly better. Looked solid against Florida for a while there. And don't get me wrong, Shane has started out the gate fine, 3-2. Wins over Eastern Illinois, East Carolina, and Troy, and losses to Georgia and Kentucky. But the Kentucky game was competitive. But I think in this scenario, it's going to be every game where, unless they play perfect, they're not going to lose by 2 touchdowns or more. So I'll take Tennessee on this one, Brian. All right, buddy. The night game on ABC this week: Battle of Traditional Powers, Nebraska and Michigan. Michigan laying 3.5, and this is going to be at Nebraska.
Yep.
And this is the one I've mulled over more than anything, because Nebraska has looked better since that absolutely awful showing at the beginning of the season against Illinois, the one where literally you probably thought they were going to fire Scott Frost the Monday morning after that happened.
Yeah, there were like a handful of coaches that were immediately on the hot seat that have since that's cooled off a little bit.
Yeah, and they're 3-3, and you can say, well, that's still a terrible record, but the losses were 7 points to Oklahoma, and 3 points to a very good Michigan State team who's undefeated right now. Blew the doors off Northwestern last week. But the way Harbaugh has his guys playing, it reminds me of 2011. And as a Niners fan, that was close to my heart. So I think Harbaugh goes down to Nebraska. I think they get a win by more than 3.5 points. And I think last week against Wisconsin proved that Jimmy would go and continue to score on people. And, because you take a look at that game last week, 38-17 at Wisconsin. And, they scored 25 points in the second half when, that's just something they hadn't done. What about you?
Yeah. I'm taking the Wolverines as well. I think this feels like a different Michigan team than the one we've kind of seen of late. I think that lack of preseason expectations has done wonders for their confidence. They look like they're playing very confidently in that offense, and the defense is playing as good as they played in the Harbaugh era there at Michigan. So
used to have.
I'll take the Wolverines here.
All right. Got you down here. All right, Brian. Let's take a look next at the Deep South's oldest rivalry. Auburn and Georgia. Georgia laying 14.5 points. Auburn coming off that kind of the Bo Nix mirage, whatever he did late in that game to LSU. And Georgia just absolutely stomping a mud hole in Arkansas in the first quarter.
Yep.
What do you think on this one?
This is the one that I've been struggling with because it's one of those where the line is fine, but you just have a huge problem laying more than 2 touchdowns in this type of game, right? I think Uga is definitely capable of putting that type of victory against them up there, but if I got to make a pick, I think that it's going to be a little bit closer than that, probably 7 to 10 point game. So give me Auburn, and I don't feel good about it, but that's what I'll go with.
All right, Brian's going Auburn. Even with the question marks around JT Daniels, the way that they're doing everything else at Georgia, I can't go against them right now. It's like Alabama. Alabama's laying like 20 against A&M this week. If that was on our board, I would lay the points. I'm going to lay the points because I think Georgia's going to win this game by 20 plus. I think this game's going to be like 42-20, 42-17. And Bo Nix, you're not going to be able to pull Houdini this week. You try to pull a Houdini this week, you might not get out of a straight jacket. All right, Brian, the big one, Saturday afternoon. We will get to enjoy this game before the Hokies.
Yeah.
Before having any,
there we go.
misery beers. Penn State, Iowa. I'm going to check this line one more time, see if anything's changed. Nope, still at 2. Iowa getting the home 2 at Kinnick. We know the stuff with Kinnick. Teams who have been big ranked have went in there before, but Iowa this time is also big ranked. And you picked the last one first, so I got to pick this one. And I'm going to go Iowa. I think Iowa might not have as many athletes at Penn State, but they are essentially doing what they do on both sides of the ball. And right now, I don't think Penn State has enough. They don't have enough athletes to overcome that.
Okay. I'm going to go Penn State here, and I don't like it, but
okay.
I think Penn State is playing as consistent football as we've seen them play in a while, and I think they see some vulnerabilities in other areas of the conference this year, and they feel like if they can get past this hump, they've got a pretty good path to potentially the college football playoff. So give me Penn State here.
All right. Jotting Brian down for Penn State on that. He will get 2 points. anything breaking since we've been doing this for about an hour and a half now, Brian?
No, Urban Meyer has not groped any other co-eds in the time that we've been on air.
That we know of.
That we know of.
That we know of. I'm just looking through here.
Daddy deserved a night out.
Looking at the baseball game, 1-1 bottom 7th. Scherzer and Wainwright are both out, so they'll finish this off. And, well, buddy, let's just do it. Let's wrap it. It's going to take care of this episode of the Boundary Corner podcast. I am Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegler.
Visit our website at boundarycornerbt.com to listen to all of our episodes. While you're there, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube account or your favorite podcast source, including Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Podcasts. As always, we let our buddy Jason Long play us in, play us out. Catch him on Spotify and Apple's Music. And as always, thank you for listening, and let's go.
Hokies!